pharmaceutical company, is being bought by a foreign company, and they're leaving. And why are they doing that? It's not because America isn't a great country. It's because we have a tax code that's one of the most expensive in the world. We are inviting people to leave.
All right, what they're talking about is the Pfizer-Allergan deal. It's a huge deal in the drug arena, about $155, $160 billion, about how you value it. Suffice to say, it's the biggest deal by far this year and continues the record-setting pace of deals. But you got to ask yourself, what would behoove a company as big as Pfizer to reincorporate essentially in Ireland, a lot smaller place? Are they unpatriotic, as essentially Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton have all but said, and now in Hillary Clinton's case they want big penalties and proposals to stop this sort of thing? Or are they just studying the math? These are companies that have to look at their bottom line, their shareholders' interests, and jobs, remember that. And what the CEO is saying apparently at Pfizer is, if you force me to stay here with these higher rates, I'm at a competitive disadvantage. Ergo, a lot of people could lose jobs anyway. So is that patriotic? The read now from Steve Cortez and Gary B. Smith. Gary, what do you think of that argument and whether it holds the day?
Well, I think, Neil, it's very simple. The tax code, as written, kind of wants to point you in certain directions. It kind of tells you it's better to buy a house than rent. It's better to be married than single. It's good to give to charity. And in the case of corporate taxes, it's very clearly telling Pfizer to say it's better to incorporate elsewhere. All they're doing is following what the tax code, as written by our representatives, tells you to do. I don't see there's anything unpatriotic about that at all.
All right, Steve, flip it around, though. A lot of people are saying they're finding a very clever way, these two companies, around this by even avoiding the inversion debate itself. In this case, having the smaller player, Allergan, being the one to buy Pfizer. We all know that's simply clever accounting here, to dodge this whole inversion thing. But is it just fueling the debate that these companies are playing it too cute for words?
Well, Neil, they are in a way, yes. And listen, lawyers and investment bankers, I will guarantee, had a very busy weekend figuring out exactly how to structure this. But, and to Gary's point, the tax code is what invites this and almost demands it. And when you talk about patriotism, by the way, the American Revolution was predicated on taxes that were too high. So how can we fault to tell corporate executives, by the way, that you should stay here just because you should and suffer with higher taxes and be disadvantaged versus global competitors? That's like telling a fraternity kid, you know what, you should come to book club even though right next door there's a raging kegger with a lot of pretty girls. It's not going to happen. We have to reform our tax code and lower our rates.
Book club. I was in book. You mean there was a raging... Anyway, Gary, the thing that comes up, and he raises an excellent point, this notion that Washington is too busy pointing the fingers at companies that take advantage of these gaps in rates and not addressing that right now here. They won't be tempted if corporate tax rates are lowered here. They'll stay here. They have every reason to stay here. It's a matter of survival and jobs, and I don't think anyone in Washington gets that.
Yeah, I think it's simple. Just lower the corporate tax rate. But you know what, Neil, Washington wants it both ways. They want to extract as much revenue out of these companies as they can with the highest corporate tax rate in amongst developed countries, and yet we don't want them to leave. I think it's simple. Just lower the tax rate. The companies like the Pfizer and Allergans will stay here. We'll probably have better job growth. It's very simple, but it's always been the left's way to try to put the clamps, more government regulation.
Or deflect. In other words, deflect. Get the attention away from what they're screwing up and focus on what these companies are doing. But Steve, the question then becomes, these companies are going to be dragged through the mud to justify this, and it's going to come at a time when there's debate over drug pricing and whether these guys are thieves, not these particular companies. You know how this debate goes. And actually, this is going to feed that beast, and it's going to get ugly. What do you think the fallout will be?
No, and listen, that's, to me, one of the most interesting parts here. I'm sure that the CFO, this was a very easy decision, right, for them to incorporate in Ireland. But for the marketing and PR folks, they said, oh, gosh, we're going to have a rough day. And here we are talking about it, right? So it's a cost-benefit analysis. I think in the end, though, listen, every American owes a patriotic duty to this country because we have been so blessed to be born here or to be naturalized here. Companies have an obligation to their shareholders, not to patriotism. And so I think in the end, Pfizer is doing the right thing here and maximizing shareholder value.
And not just for shareholders, as you guys point out, for the workers there. I mean, you're beating up against the wall. Guys, thank you both very, very much.